stem, they help in vegetative propagation. You must have all seen the potato. These are the tubers, and a potato has eyes or the nodes on its surface. Each node has the ability to give rise to a new plant. So if we cut a portion of this potato containing the node or the eye and we grow it in the soil, it can give rise to a new plant. Similarly, the underground stem, like the rhizome, example is ginger. They are structures like this, growing horizontally in the soil, and they have circular nodes. And in these nodes, there are certain buds, and each bud has the ability to give rise to a new plant. Similarly, are examples like bulbs or the onion, which is one of the example of a bulb. These bulbs also, they have condensed shoots at their base, and this shoot has the ability to give rise to a new plant. And the corms, such as colocasia, they also are the underground stem. Colocasia is the example. So these are also the underground stem which have the ability to propagate vegetatively. After the natural mode of vegetative propagation, let's move over to the artificial modes of vegetative propagation. Okay, before that, let's move over to the leaves. The leaves also can act as a source of vegetative propagation. There are leaves like that of bryophyllum or patharchat. You must have seen these leaves are thick and they are green in color. They look something like this, and at their notches, they develop adventitious buds which give rise to a new plant. Now when this leaf, it falls from the main plant body into the soil, all these plants, they grow to give rise to new individual plants. Or sometimes it so happens that when these plantlets, which grow in the notches of these leaves, when they grow in size, they themselves fall down and give rise to a new plant. So these were the modes of natural vegetative propagation. Now let us see what are the various modes of artificial vegetative propagation that the agriculturalists or the farmers, they have developed for improvement of the crops. Artificial modes of vegetative propagation can be of many types. We'll be discussing a few here. So artificial vegetative propagation. We'll be discussing three types. One is cutting. Second, we'll be discussing about layering. And third, we'll be discussing grafting. Now, how are these methods actually performed? Now, you must have seen that there are certain plants like the rose plant. They are usually grown by the cuttings of these plants rather than through the sexual modes of reproduction by formation of seeds, because it is a faster method. So what happens in a rose plant? That 20 to 30 centimeter stem is cut and an oblique cut is given on the stem to ensure that there is a maximum exposure of the tissue. One of its side, one of the portion of the stem is dipped in the root inducing hormones or the auxins. These auxins, they stimulate the root formation in that one of the parts of the cuttings from the plant, and then they are sown in the soil. And these cuttings then later give rise to a new plant, forming roots at the base and stem and leaves at the top. So this is how cutting is performed. The second method is that of layering. Layering can be of two types. One, the layering is done at the soil using the basal branch of a plant. Another type of layering is done in the air, and basically that is done in the larger trees. So what happens in layering? That, for example, at the soil using the basal branch of a plant. Another type of layering is done in the air, and basically that is done in the larger trees. So what happens in layering? That, for example, we have a usually done in jasmine plants. So we have a plant growing we take one of the basal branch of the plant and we remove all the leaves from this branch. We pull the branch under the soil and cover the branch with a lot of soil. After a period of time, it is seen that the roots develop on the lower portion, and here the stem formation takes place. Now, this part of the branch is cut off and a new plant is transplanted or taken to some other place, and it acts as a new individual plant. Before the branch is covered in the soil, a small cut or incision is made on the branch so that the root formation can be easily done, and the the branch is able to come in contact with the soil more easily. Another type of layering is this is a simple kind of layering. The another kind of layering is the air layering. In air layering, what they do, larger trees which have good fruit variety, they for increasing their number, what they do, they take one of the healthy branch of the tree, they remove the bark from that branch, they covered that portion from where the bark has been removed, they covered that portion with mud and a little sawdust, some cow dung and some auxins, and then they covered that portion with this material along with covering it with the polythene and tying it up. After some time, in that portion, that part of the branch, certain roots develop, and then that branch is cut off from the main tree and grown at another place or transplanted somewhere else. So air layering also is a kind of artificial vegetative propagation. The third kind that we'll be discussing here is grafting. Grafting is a method wherein the two plants, their good qualities are mixed together. So basically the plants are chosen in such a way that one of the plant has a stronger shoot system and another plant has a stronger root system. That means that if suppose there is a plant which has got a which is a high yielding variety and it yields a lot of fruits or vegetables. So the shoot from that plant is taken and a root of another plant which is probably disease resistant, is able to thrive in different environmental conditions, that is taken, and both their qualities are combined by grafting. So the shoot part which is taken is known as the scion, and usually a cut is made into it. So we make a kind of a wedge cut on the scion, which is the graft, a part of the branch or the shoot from one of the plants. Then this is inserted into another part of the plant which has a stronger root system. Okay, this is called as the shaft. Both of them, they are joined and then they are tied with a rope or a thread together for a period of time. Slowly, both these plants, they kind of combine with each other and they form a single plant. So this is how the qualities of the two plants, they can be combined together. So we have covered vegetative propagation also. So a quick recap of the various methods of asexual modes of reproduction that we did today were: 1, we started off with fission. We discussed about 3 types of fission, that is binary fission, multiple fission and plasmotomy. Then second method that we took up was budding. In budding, we did exogenous buds. We discussed what were exogenous buds and what are endogenous buds. In fragmentation, we took two examples, one of Taenia or the tapeworm and second of algae Spirogyra. Third was spore formation. We saw how different types of spores, they are used in dispersal as well as formation of a new plant or a new organism. Then the last part that we discussed was vegetative propagation. We saw how natural vegetative propagation takes place in plant, which ensures that the multiplication of plants take place at a faster rate and good qualities of the parents are kind of preserved from generation to generation. And we also discussed the artificial vegetative propagation, which is done by the agriculturists artificially, by the farmers artificially, to give rise to new plants which have better qualities. So we discussed about cutting, which takes place in rose plant, layering, which is seen in plants such as jasmine, or in the trees like guava, mango, apple, citrus, and so on. And we discussed about grafting, again, which is possible in trees like the mango, guava, and apples, citrus, and so on. So in the next part of the video, we will be discussing about the sexual modes of reproduction. We will be discussing various terms which will be helpful to you in understanding the concepts which come up in the next chapter, that is sexual reproduction in plants and sexual reproduction in human beings, followed by the fourth chapter, which is the reproductive health.